So hello everybody and welcome to this webinar, How Can I Manage My Time and Avoid Procrastination? My name's Ruth Bowles. I'm one of the academic skills consultants here based in the library, and I'll be delivering this, and I've also got Alice with me. Welcome. Hello. Alice. And she's a third year sociology student, so she's also going to be providing some insights of her experiences of managing time. So I just thought it'd be interesting to start off with this quote from Carl Sandburg, who was a journalist, poet, author. And he said, "Time's the most valuable coin in your life. You determine how that coin will be spent. Do not let other people spend it for you." And I think that's a really good quote to ponder on, because we should feel that we're in control of our time, yet so often we don't feel that, do we? We often feel that there's other demands, other people are controlling our time. So we want to, in this webinar, really address that a little bit and think, well, how can we feel more in control? And we're going to share some of the personal challenges that we have in feeling in control of our time, and the sort of problems we have with procrastinating, and then review some strategies that are going to help you feel more confident and to try out. They may not all work for you, but the idea is to find out about them and then see what does work for you. And finally, set some goals, some targets that you can work on to improve your time management. And these are SMART targets, so we'll talk a little bit about that later on. Okay, so obviously at university studying, you have a lot to do, but you also have other things to do. So you might be looking for work, you might already have a job, you have to fit that in. You obviously want to socialize. You might want to spend time exercising, and then the just general everyday domestic things that have to go on, like cleaning and cooking. So there's a lot to fit in, and it can be very challenging. At times it can feel overwhelming as well. So one of the first things we want to think about really is getting motivated to study, because with all these things going on in our lives, we can feel, well, just not worth it, it's too much, I can't do it all. So we want to get motivated and focus on why we're actually here studying, why you're here, what the purpose is of your course. And a little technique that many students have found useful is using images. So you can either visualize, or you can actually find images that are useful for you. So the idea behind this is to imagine where you're going to be in perhaps 5 years' time, 10 years' time. Can you see yourself in one of these pictures? Perhaps you're studying to be a scientist, journalism, a teacher. You might want to work in an office, engineering. There's so many things, obviously, that you might want to do. So just try and visualize yourself in that future you, and maybe even cut out a picture and stick it up and imagine yourself in the future. And also certain questions you can ask yourself. So, why am I studying this course? How will I feel when I've completed this year? So really using these questions to self-reflect can help you get motivated, get up in the morning, get out to that lecture, come into the library and do some revision, or start working on your assignment. So we will have some activities for you to do during this webinar. So the first one we want you to think about is really this question of, what is your motivation? What do you want to achieve over this coming year? So why are you here? Why are you studying? Or maybe your long-term goal. So perhaps just think about that and just type in. Perhaps you'd like to share and type in to the box there, share with others. And while you're doing that, Alice and I are just going to have a talk about it. So what about you, Alice? What is your goal, your motivation?
So I just have come to uni because I really want to get a degree. I think it will open up my opportunities in the future. And I also use images to get motivated.
Oh, really?
I quite often write out my assessments and what I've got coming up, and that keeps me like focused on my upcoming assignments.
That's great. Yeah.
And like planning my goals. So I do this thing which is what I need to do by next week and what I need to do by next month. So
Brilliant. Yeah. So you're sort of really focusing maybe on short-term goals, but also the long-term goals. Yeah. And you sort of imagine yourself in a future job.
Yeah, definitely.
That's brilliant. I also did that when I was studying. So I found a picture of a teacher because I wanted to be going to teaching, and I would look at that. So that helped me quite a lot. Nobody wants to share right now, that's okay, but maybe just write down for yourself at home what you would like to do, what your goal is, short term or long term. Okay, so once we've done that, once we've established what our motivation is, then we can get more motivated about achieving those goals, but obviously things get in the way. So what's stopping you? That's the next question. Oh, just Phoebe's just shared. That's great. Yeah. Financial freedom. Yeah, definitely. And thinking about that long-term career. That's great. Yeah. And a few others I think are going to be adding. So being your own boss. Great. Yeah. So obviously, if you've got those goals in mind, that's really going to help you focus on getting that assignment done, because every small achievement leads up to your final goal of getting that career that you want and will keep you going. But as we said, there are these sort of things that happen and stop us in the short term. So we're going to think a little bit about what's stopping you. Perhaps it's lack of time. So you might feel a bit overwhelmed. You've got so much to do, fitting in work and studying. Perhaps you just aren't able to get organised. You're not planning enough. Getting distracted, looking on our phones and starting to text friends, social media. It's very easy to get distracted, isn't it? Perhaps sitting down to watch something on TV and then you get distracted and just start watching more and more. Also, this idea of personality. You may have heard of there's something called type A and type B personality. I don't know if you've heard of those,
No.
Alice? Well, basically, the type A person is one who does a schedule. Everything is organised, colour-coded. Type B is the person who's a bit more relaxed, doesn't really worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. They may get it done, they may not. Some people are that type and others are type A. Most of us are a mixture. So we're sort of in between the A and B. So there's probably some things we're doing right, but there's other things we could work on. And that's the problem that we all have, is that there are times we're a bit tired, we've got a lot to do, where we get into that type B type of losing motivation. We don't want to get out of bed. We don't want to get up from the TV. And so that's where we want to really try and use specific strategies that are going to help us improve. So again, let's just take a moment. Perhaps you'd all like to think what distracts you. You can type in, if you like, what's your procrastinating activity. What about you, Alice? Time to be honest now.
Well, I like to think I'm personality type A, but I think I'm type B a lot more than I admit.
Okay.
I definitely get distracted by Netflix. I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. Yeah, not the best thing to do.
Yeah. I totally get that. Yeah. I find similarly, you have good intentions, but then you just get distracted.
Definitely.
I often think, I really need to clean the kitchen. Suddenly that becomes a priority,
I have that as well.
Yeah, Before it didn't matter, but suddenly the dishes need doing, and maybe the floor needs doing. And actually, there's something else I should be getting on with, but I put that first. I think that's a good point, Phoebe, about the boring bits. We just don't want to do them. Yeah, and even though we need to do them, I think we always leave those things for last, don't we? And sometimes we don't do them, and then it just carries on till the next day. So this is something that's very common. If you're struggling with this, you're not alone. Most students find it a challenge and do get into this sort of procrastinating type of behaviour. So what we want to do is use strategies that are going to help us manage our time. And planning is one of the key things. And you may be planning, but perhaps you could improve your planning techniques. So we're going to go through some things that you can try out. So firstly, you might want to think, well, how do I spend my time? How do I actually spend my time? So the first thing to do with this, we're not going to do this activity now because it takes a while, but you can actually make a schedule of what you want to do over the week, quite detailed. And you may think, well, I already do this. Okay, you may. But the second stage is really important. You then record on the schedule what you actually do. So if you've planned to study from 10 to 12 and then have lunch and then 2 you go to a lecture, do you actually do that? Or at 9:45 do you decide, oh, I think I'll just go on social media for a bit, and then suddenly you find it's 11:45. So this is a great way of actually seeing what you do, and you can compare the two schedules, identify changes. So perhaps there's certain things that you're doing that aren't working out. You need to make the schedule more realistic. So if you plan, I'm going to study 7 hours this day, well, maybe that's not going to happen because there's other things on that day. So perhaps you have to break the time up into smaller periods of time. Or maybe you're planning these morning sessions and really evenings are better for you, or vice versa. Have you ever tried this, Alice, or is it something you think you might try?
Yeah, we were talking about it last week and saying how we probably say we're going to go and cook dinner for half an hour, and you might end up in the kitchen for 2-3 hours chatting with your friends or housemates, and doing the record your schedule and writing down what you actually do. I spent 45 minutes scrolling on Instagram. Will make you realise how much time you're wasting. And then you can plan your time more effectively. Stop yourself getting so distracted as well.
Yeah, and it's quite an eye-opener.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean to say, if you feel that when you look at it, oh, I really enjoy having that time getting my food with my other housemates, okay, that's fine, but factor that in.
Yeah, definitely.
If you know it's going to take a couple of hours, okay, then I have to plan on Saturday. Maybe I'm not going to go out Saturday evening because I've got an assignment due, and I'm going to plan to just all that day, and Sunday maybe is going to be my study time. So you've got to look at it, make it realistic. It doesn't mean to say you can't have social time, but it's surprising how much we do spend, don't we, in these other things. Small bits of time really add up. And you obviously, like that quote we looked at the beginning, you want to be in control of your time. You want to make the most of every moment that you've got. Okay, so let's have a look at something else that you can do. Now, this is something that many people do, write a to-do list. So we're actually going to get you to do this, not on the chat section, but at home. So just get a piece of paper, or you can use your phone, or if you've got a computer, you can open a document. So just maybe think about this day, just today, okay? So for the rest of today, for this afternoon, evening, what do you need to do? What would be your to-do list? So just write down, maybe you've got to do some food shopping, perhaps you've got to work on an assignment, you've got to go to the library to get some books, whatever it is. Just write it down, okay? So no one else is going to see this, so you can put anything that you need to do there. It might be, call the dentist, whatever it is. Okay, so we'll give you a few minutes to do that. I think I quite like that question at the end as well. That's a quite good way of thinking about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And also like on your to-do list, including even like the little mundane tasks that you think aren't really worth writing down, like putting laundry on.
Yeah.
Because even if that's on your list, ticking it off is really satisfying, and it makes you feel like you've actually done something, which encourages you to want to tick off more things on the list as well.
That's a great point. Yeah. And I think we often overlook those things because we
Yeah.
think, oh, I've got, all afternoon. And then you forgot that you actually need to do the laundry, and that could take time. You may have facilities nearby. Perhaps you've got to go somewhere to do it. And that could take up a big chunk of your time. It's got to be done.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully you've all got some things down on your to-do list. So I know this is something you might think, well, I do this regularly, but we're going to do something slightly different now. And this is, when I did this, this really transformed my to-do list. So this is something called the Eisenhower principle. Sorry that you can't see that slide that clearly, but it's the Eisenhower principle. So Eisenhower was one of the, was in the army, obviously you can see his uniform there, so had good training in being organised, and then he was one of the presidents of the USA. And he developed this principle because he was renowned for accomplishing a lot, being highly organised. And he said that we should divide things we have to do into either important activities or urgent activities. So if it's important, it's something that enables you to achieve a goal. You've got something you need to do long term, and then that goal, that activity will help you achieve it. If it's urgent, it's something you have to do now, because if not, there's going to be consequences. So this is quite an interesting way of thinking about things, and we're just going to illustrate how you might do this. So here you can see you've got 4 boxes. So you start to think, is the task I've put down on my list, is it important and urgent? So maybe you're feeling really hungry, a bit faint. So that's important and urgent, get some food right now. Perhaps you've got to have a meeting with your lecturer to discuss your work. Maybe an exam is coming up in a week's time. You've got to get on with that revision. Maybe you've got really bad toothache, so you've got to make a dentist appointment. Important but not urgent. So these are things that you can do later. So perhaps you are in perhaps a month's time, you're going to get a flight. Perhaps if you live in another country, or perhaps you're going to holiday, and you need to get that flight done. It's important, but it's not urgent, so you can do it at a later time. Prioritize perhaps other things right now. Perhaps you do need to go to the dentist, but you haven't got toothache, so you just have to go to a checkup. Well, maybe that can wait till after your exam. That could be prioritised for later on. So those are things you need to do, but not right now. They can be done later. Number 3, they're important. They're not important, sorry, but they are urgent. So perhaps things like doing the food shopping, doing the washing. It's important, but maybe it doesn't have to be done right now, but it does need to be done. So could you delegate? Perhaps you could ask a housemate, I've got an exam next week, I've got an assignment due on next Monday. Could you do the food shopping for me? I can't go, and I'll make it up for you later, another time. Perhaps there's some books due back at the library. If you don't take them back, you're going to get fined. So could someone else on your course take them for you and do you a favour? So there's certain things that you need to do, but you don't perhaps have to do them right now, not this moment, and perhaps you can delegate. And then finally, things that are urgent, but are not urgent and not important. So these are often the things that we prioritise for some reason. Perhaps, there's a concert you want to go to and you think, I've got to book this right now. Well, do you really need to go to that concert? It's not achieving your goal of passing your assignment. Perhaps you could just not go and perhaps go to something else when you've handed in your assignment. Perhaps you want to go out for the evening with friends. Well, perhaps you can just do it the following week once you've revised for your exam. What do you think of this principle, Alice?
I think it's really useful, especially with the number 4, not urgent and not important, and recognising when things aren't as important as you may think they are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially like what you said about the friends. If you've got friends that are giving you a bit of a hard time about wanting to see you, just be honest with them and say, look, I need to prioritise my goals. I've got something I need to do.
Yeah.
Can we meet up another time or plan ahead with me in the future?
Yeah. And if they're good friends, they'll understand, won't they? So what we want you to do now is have a look at your to-do list and put some numbers next to those things you've written down. So decide, is this task that I've written down, is it number 1, 2, 3 or 4? And once you've done that, it's a great way of really prioritising things, because I don't know about you, but I find I look at that to-do list I've got and it becomes a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Once I start to prioritise it, immediately I can see what I need to do right away.
Especially if you've got a to-do list like on one of the slides before, which had the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
You can put the things that are maybe number 2 further down in the week.
That's a great idea.
Number 3 further down in the week, but prioritise things in number 1 in today.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, so I hadn't thought of that. You could do it right at the beginning, maybe Sunday night, or Monday morning. Have a look at your week and see how you're going to prioritise your tasks during the week. Yeah, that's
and add
great.
Things in as you go if you need to as well.
Yeah, and that's also quite an incentive, because if you get 1, 2 and 3 done, then maybe you've got time for 4 on Friday or Saturday. Yeah, great. Yeah, so have a go at that. And hopefully that will also help all of you with your to-do lists. Okay, so the next technique or strategy we're going to look at that you might like to try is a SWOT analysis. Now, this is something that is quite familiar for people perhaps doing business courses or thinking about careers. What are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats? However, we don't always do it for our personal lives. So this is something you can try in just sort of organising your time a bit better. Again, it's similar to the prioritising, but it's sort of thinking a bit more about in a more sort of long-term approach. So these are some of the things that you might like to think about. And again, you can have a go at this if you want while we're talking. So it could be that you've got certain strengths, you're good at multitasking, easygoing, get on well with others, enjoy reading. You've got certain weaknesses. I'm going to focus particularly on this one about nervous about speaking in front of large groups. So you might be great with smaller groups or people you know well, but not large groups of people that you don't know. So threats links very much to this, because imagine you have an assignment coming up that's a presentation and you have this weakness. You don't like speaking in front of large groups. So how are you going to deal with it? Okay, well, strengths. You get on well with others, so perhaps you can chat with your friends. They might support you and give you some ideas. Opportunities. On Skills Hub, we have lots of information about preparing presentations. We also have we have some videos, and we have workshops that can help you on that. So you have opportunities, things that you can use to help you with these weaknesses and threats that could come up. Similarly, you might have a problem, a threat of not much money. Perhaps your job's coming to an end, you've got to find a new one. What's your opportunities? Well, in the Careers and Employability Centre, there are careers advisors. You could come and talk to them. So this is a way of thinking about how you organise your time and organise your life in general, and it's quite a good technique. Have you ever tried this, Alice?
I haven't, but I think I'll give it a go.
Okay.
Because I think this is quite like a positive approach to time managing, especially just sort of turning your weaknesses and threats into opportunities and strengths.
Yes.
You can combat these things.
Yes.
You don't need to look at your weaknesses and think, oh, I'm not going to ever do this
Yeah.
presentation in front of my class.
Yeah.
You can think, well, I've got opportunities and strengths that I can use to combat this and make a real good go of something you're quite fearful of.
I think that's a good point. And I think this is a great way to avoid procrastination, because if you have this weakness of being nervous about speaking in front of others, but you think, okay, and now I've got to try and present something, I don't think I can do it. You might procrastinate. You think, I don't want to face this, I don't want to think about it. But by looking at this opportunities box and really looking at ways that you can get support for it, suddenly you can be motivated into action, can't you? I think that's a great way of sort of using your time.
And the earlier you start, the more time you'll have to prepare and practice and feel more confident about what you've got to speak about.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And this is something you can do before those threats have even come up. You might know down the line you're going to have a certain situation coming up. And then you can sort of say, okay, what am I good at? What am I not good at in relation to this? And being at the university, we have a lot of support, so it's a great place to be for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Okay, so maybe some of you too would like to try this and have a go, see if it works for you. All right, we're going on to our next one. Now, this is something that you might have heard of, the Pomodoro method, which means tomato in Italian. This, I think, is great. I really love this. Some of you might have tried it. You do not need the tomato timer. You could just use your phone. And this is a great way of getting started. We often sit down when we've got an assignment perhaps to do and we stare at the blank page. But using this, you can set the timer 25 minutes and work on it. Take a 5-minute break, continue working. And it can really motivate you just to get started. You said that you've used this to me, you mentioned.
And I think especially with setting a timer as well, putting your other distractions to the side, you'll be surprised how much you can actually get done in a set time that you've set yourself.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it can be applied to many situations. I've actually used it when I know that I've got to perhaps clean the house a bit and I don't feel like doing it. And obviously, if you're not doing those things, it's going to mount up and you're not going to feel very organised. So I've set it even for 5 minutes just to do perhaps clear up my desk area. So I've got a nice clear space to work on. And it can be done very quickly. So this is a great motivator and we really recommend that you try it and see if it works and helps you. Now, there are also quite a lot of apps out there that you can try. The Focus Booster is sort of a similar one to the Pomodoro. The Focus Writer's quite nice. It sort of provides you with a very clear screen without any distractions. Remember the Milk is sort of a way of organising things, list making, using an app. And then there's Forest. So have you heard of Forest, Alice?
I've heard of it. Isn't it where you grow a tree?
You do. Yeah, and they actually donate money to planting trees. So you're helping the environment as well. I'm not anything to do with this app, but I will promote it. I just really like it. And I know a lot of students have told me they find it very useful. So it can help you get focused, but there's many others out there. So try. And these are free, so you don't even have to spend money to use them. Our final technique for helping you get motivated and use your time effectively is rewards. Now, this comes from the idea of positive reinforcement. Like the dog there, if you have a dog or you know how dogs are, you'll know that you tell them to do something. If you give them a little treat, they will do it very quickly because they love food. And you can train them using this. So the idea behind this is you're sort of training yourself. If you have a period of revision or an assignment that you know you've got to get something done by a certain time and you find it hard, then decide I'm going to study for this period of time, then I'm going to have a coffee. Or perhaps I'm going to allow myself 10 minutes on social media. Even a little piece of chocolate. Definitely would recommend breaking the chocolate up into small pieces, or it will go very quickly. Going out, even having a little money box and putting 10p in every time you do half an hour study, or increase it 50p, whatever you can afford. That can really be motivating, and then you've got some money saved up to go out at the end of your study period. And this thing as well, don't break the chain. Have you heard of that, Alice?
No, I haven't.
Basically, this is, you can do it on a piece of paper and you mark out the number of days, so 30 days for the month, or there is actually an app for this as well. And you decide on the task you want to do. So it might be, okay, I'm going to do 30 minutes of reading from this textbook or my reading list every day. Every time you achieve that, you tick the box. And you can put that up on the wall, or if it's on your phone, it'll check with you if you've achieved it. And I find that really useful.
It's kind of like a star chart. But
Yeah, exactly. You can put stars on it if you want. Yeah, and this is a great way because there's something about it psychologically. You don't want to have a box without a tick on it. Yeah. So this is a good way of getting into a habit, starting new positive habits, using your time wisely. And you can use it for study or exercise, whatever you want. So just a few final things we're going to mention, and then at the end you can ask some questions if you have any. So start small, don't feel you've got to totally transform everything. Just perhaps start off with small things. Make sure you've got a nice study area. If you haven't got that at home, come into the library, find somewhere that's good for you. Using small amounts of time is effective. It doesn't have to be 5 hours of study. It could be I'm going to start off with 15 minutes every morning and then build up to more. Perhaps breaking it up into small half-hour chunks during the day, whatever suits you. And that can often add up to quite a lot. Even 15 minutes on the bus perhaps could add up to quite a lot. Make sure you factor in breaks. Manage stress if you are feeling overwhelmed, get some support. This is all important to manage your time effectively. John Maxwell said, you'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. And I think that's the idea we've tried to get through here with this webinar, that it's really effective if you make these changes, small changes every day.
Yeah.
And they become habits, don't they?
Yeah.
And then we just become very organised people. And so just to review, these are some of the things we've looked at. And these are things that you might want to consider that you're going to include in your life. So finally, have a think about the things we've talked about. Perhaps choose one of these that we've mentioned and just write down what you're going to do. And then, perhaps in a few days, choose another thing you're going to try for next week. And as we said, we want these to be smart targets. So something that's specific, something you can measure, something that's achievable and realistic, and set a time when you're going to try and do this. If anyone wants to share what they're going to try or anything they've been found helpful, you're welcome to do that. And we also have a bit of time now. You can ask some questions. So if there's any questions you want us to ask, just type away. From what we've looked at, is there one particular thing that you think, Alice, that is most useful for you?
I think the main thing for me is making a timetable. So when I make my timetable, I usually do it at the start of the week or a Sunday night, and I put everything on there. So I put the meals I'm going to eat that week.
Brilliant.
It might sound a bit much for some people.
That's great.
And I don't just put when you have uni on there. I put when I'm going to see friends, when I've got work, and I add the social stuff as well, because if you just put what you've got at uni, think, I've got loads of free time, I've got loads of time for this, you might forget about the social stuff, or sometimes you just need to factor in like downtime as well.
And do you find that helps you?
Yeah, definitely, like delegating tasks and prioritising.
Have you tried that?
Yeah, maybe not with so much success.
Yeah, you've got to convince somebody,
Yeah,
haven't you?
got to be realistic about what you need to do as well.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't mean, you've got to control every second of every day. It's good to have downtime when you're not worrying about managing
Yeah.
the time in the same way. But if you factored that in, that downtime, that socializing, then you can relax and enjoy
Yeah.
it. I like the idea of the meals, because we often spend a lot of time thinking, what am I going to cook?
Yeah.
And also shopping. If
Yeah, it
you,
helps with
yeah.
budgeting as well. If you
Oh,
struggle with
okay.
money, like write what the meal you're going to have, what ingredients you need, go to the shop, and then only buy what you need as
Mm.
well. So if you struggle with that, it's a good way to.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we've got a comment here about, okay, I'm going to spend this week making revision notes. My lecture's already gone using the Pomodoro method. That's a great idea. Yeah, hope that goes well. I love the Pomodoro method, I must say, and it's helped me a lot when I've had to get on with things and I'm not in the mood. So we hope that's effective for you. Okay, so if you have any questions at another time, and anything that we haven't covered, have a look on Skills Hub because we do have a section there on managing time. And we hope that will help you. I've got another message here, a comment about reflecting on the timetable. Yeah, that's a good point, making it more realistic. I'm glad the Eisenhower technique was useful. Great. Try that.
Give it a go.
Yeah, work
And
for Eisenhower.
if that one doesn't work, try a different one.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And I also think these things work for different people. Also, they work for individuals at different times.
Yeah.
So, especially that point about when you're revising for an exam, I think you do need something that's going to help you focus and get on with it. But you might not need it in your everyday reviewing of notes.
Yeah.
It just depends. Oh, some people have commented it's been useful. That's great.
With all of these as well, you can use the positive reinforcement and rewards.
Yes.
But just be careful because sometimes I've treated myself too much, and I'm sure some other people do that too. So
yeah, I think that's very true. On the other hand, if it's like, you're really finding it hard to get down to the last few days before you have to hand it in, and you really need to focus, I think you can allow yourself to have a few extra treats. Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, all the best, all of you, with trying out these different approaches. Some more are going to try a few more comments about Pomodoro. Great, hope that helps. And hope to see you at another webinar.